So I would just briefly like to set the scene, both as director in the European Commission DG Connect, but also currently serving as chair of the governing board of the joint undertaking. And that will help you to understand the context in which we are working. And as Alex has just shown in the program, will then bring us to a situation in which we then focus very particularly on the call and on its contents. But I would just like to start by showing to you how the work that we are doing in the joint undertaking and the specific goals are rooted directly in core European Union policies with regard to the digital decade, which comes from our data strategy, from our digital strategy, and why we have already been working for some time on the objectives, first of all, with regard to coverage by 5G, but then building it on to the key transport paths, building it out in cities, and then increasingly meeting that public policy need as much as the industrial need of having 5G throughout the territory of the European Union, full standalone 5G, because of the vital importance of it in the transformation of the economy, the digitalization of all sectors of the economy. And it has not just technical or even just economic objectives, in fact. It is in relation also to ensuring security and securing our economy through the autonomy, the ability to operate separately despite geopolitical pressures. So that is already with what we are doing on 5G, what we achieved previously under the 5GPP, but from an early stage moving towards advanced 5G and aiming already for 6G. That you see just how important these communications technologies have become. And they are not just a research effort, but the research is critical to allowing us to achieve our strategic objectives. That relates to cybersecurity, to economic security. You will all remember it wasn't necessarily a particularly peaceful process of the 5G security toolbox, which was because of the challenges of having vendors who may not necessarily have been trusted, but also question marks about the security of the strategic networks that we were putting in place. That's why we had the toolbox. That's why we had more recently an implementation report with regard to how the member states ranked themselves in terms of the criteria that were applied, indulging in the long period of time that some were given to transform their networks in comparison to the perceived security risks. And those risks were stated more clearly in that report to the extent that the Commission increasingly now is asserting our need to take difficult decisions with regard to global trading partners because of the potential risk to our security. And that becomes even more obvious in a major political communication discussed with the heads of government in the middle of last year about our economic strategy, our economic security strategy, which came, as I said, from the Commission, but was endorsed by the heads of government about promoting, protecting, and partnering with each other in order to ensure that our economic security was at the heart of everything we do, but working with global partners when we were clear that they had the same objective and shared the same values and the same wish with regard to security. So it's an open approach to security. It is not closed. It is not Fortress Europe. And then within that context, we come to how we achieve some of that in terms of practical implementation. The vision with regard to achieving advanced digital networks, to having autonomy with regard to advanced 5G and 6G, is part of a wider approach where we again are trying to be pragmatic. Not only do we want to work with, we actually have to work with industry and research centers as the key experts and the key drivers of technological development. And that is why the partnership approach is so important across a whole lot of sectors that you see listed there. including, of course, in networking and networking technologies, where we need to have disruptive new concepts, but which takes account of the sunk cost and the existing networks, but embraces all of the new technologies, including, but not only, artificial intelligence, software-defined networks, in order to drive us towards this 6G in a cloud-RAN, HPC to cloud to edge to IoT continuum, which is very disruptive compared to the old vertical telecoms that we used to know. One also that takes account of big public policy goals, such as the need for sustainable telecommunications and to looking at our carbon footprint. So that when we come specifically to this joint undertaking, the smart networks and services, already we have mapped out the key strategic areas. There are 4 key areas, and you'll see the breakdown now in the presentations that will be made to you later in the morning, which we envisioned, but which are then filled out and elaborated in conjunction with the 6G Industry Association, so that it remains focused and up to date, relevant to industry needs, to the user needs in the sectors, as well as the providers of services over these networks, in terms of industrial leadership, in terms of the sustainable development goals, as I've said, in terms of our autonomy goals, but getting down to what are the applications and services, what are the actual technological needs in those 4 key areas. And that really brings me to the end of my presentation, because what I've tried to show very quickly is how the work that's being presented, the call today, the work that we want you to do as partners in the work of the Smart Networks and Services Joint Undertaking, is to accelerate 5G, move towards 6G with that vision in mind, with the strategic research agenda and the vision that we have for a much more converged and connected supply chain and service industry using advanced 5G and 6G networks, which only you can help us to provide. Using, we hope, exploiting the funding available at national level, but particularly now at European level, and of course what industry brings, that very significant contribution which industry association members are committed to making with regard to realizing our vision. So I'd like to hand back now to Alex. Thank you so much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to a very interesting morning. Thank you.
Good. Let us turn away from communications problems today and look at communication problems tomorrow. So I just wanted to spend a few minutes looking at where this work program comes from. So Pearse has been kind enough to give the big picture of strategically what we're trying to do. I'd perhaps like to take it a level down and look at exactly where the inputs and the people involved in this work program have been. So if I could go to the next slide, please. This slide is trying to give some idea of the various groups and the various inputs that go into one of these work programs. This isn't a trivial process. This takes an awful lot of time and effort, but it's important because in some ways it needs to fit the agenda for Europe going forward. So we need to be looking at the right areas. We need to be investing in the right things. So on the left, you can see the various different stakeholders who are involved in the consultation in building this work program. So the work program process is run by the 6GIA together with the SNS JU office and indeed the European Commission, DG Connect. So together we run this and we talk with these various different stakeholders, SRG, which is the member states, the stakeholders groups, which includes things like automotive, smart media, agriculture, IoT, all of these sort of things. We talk with related partnerships, which I'll come on to in a minute, but also national initiatives. So the national 6G research initiatives in Germany, France, and Netherlands, and other places. And then we also need to talk with international players, and you'll see some presentations in the agenda today with Japan and Korea, who we will have cooperation with, and also standardization bodies. So there's many levels, many people we need to interact with. We have key input coming partly from Networld Europe, ETP, where they create an SRIA, a Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda, which is looking at the next 10 years, a sort of technological roadmap, if you will. And we pick various items from that, which we then drive forward for the various different work programs. And clearly then there's the consultations with the 6GIA members. We have a number of consultations on the work program, trying to make sure it fits with the needs of industry. We also need to look at past calls to see where there are gaps and where there are things that we've missed. And clearly we have this policy area, which is what Pearse was highlighting. If I could go on to the next slide, please. So we have these two key streams of input, if you will, coming in to creation of this work program. We have, in some ways, top down, we have this public side policies and priorities. So strategically, what we need to be looking at. But then we have, in some ways, bottom up, which is looking more from the industry point of view of what we feel we need to be researching. And clearly we need to somehow combine these two areas. And to give you some sort of ideas, the work program you will see today that we will present had over 100 individual meetings between various groups to try and bring it to fruition, to the maturity that we show it to you today. And clearly we need to keep in mind not just the individual calls, but also the overall SNS-JU partnership, something where we're trying to really mobilize the European stakeholders and have a program that runs not for 1 or 2 or 3 years, but for the whole 8 or 10 years of the SNS-JU, and in that time frame, deliver a key set of KPIs. If I could have the next slide, please. And just to finish it off, this isn't about just connectivity. So clearly SNS-JU is focused on connectivity, and this is a vital part of technology for the future, as we're all aware. But it needs to fit in with the overall framework, with the other partnerships going on. So things like microelectronics and the CHIPS Act, photonics, rail, AI data, HPC. So there's a series of other initiatives that we need to fit into, and we contribute to their planned work programs, and they contribute to ours, at least in terms of consultation, trying to fit these pieces together, trying to have not just single pieces of the jigsaw, but a whole puzzle with everything in the right place. Okay, I think that's enough time on where this is coming from. Let us now get into the real detail. Thank you for the time. Thank you for your patience. Let's move on to the real content now. Alex, I hand back to you.
Thank you very much, Colin. And I would like to welcome Mrs. Erzsebet Fitori, the Executive Director of the SNS-JU, the person that is coordinating the activities and the discussion between DG Connect, the SIG Industry Association.
I will try to give you a bit of an update on the state of play with regard to where we are with our work program, where we are with the JU office. But before I get to the update, maybe just to recap. Okay, no, I cannot move the slide. Just to recap. Can you see my slide? Sorry.
We see the first slide, Erzsebet, the title of your presentation.
Okay, I think that.
No, because it is.
Okay. With this.
Now we see the next slide. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So before we move to the update part, maybe just to recap, very much aligned with Pearse's and also Colin's presentations, that the SNS-JU is obviously fully aligned with Europe's strategic priorities. And the European strategic priorities are very much focused on trying to create a human-centric digital world that reflects European values. But of course, this must be a collective effort, as there is no single country or company that could actually face these challenges alone. And there are five key strategic priorities in this regard. First of all, to capture the growth opportunity of new applications for European companies, for example, in the area of cloud, IoT, but also devices and components. Secondly, to maintain industrial relationships, to maintain industrial leadership and to develop a strategic value chain. Sustainability, as you will see later on, has a particular focus this year, but this is also an overarching strategic priority to support, on the one hand, the European Green Deal, but also to address the sustainable development goals. Societal impact as a third strategic priority is extremely important to underpin key societal challenges such as inclusion, accessibility, trustworthiness. And lastly, but equally importantly, also to support European technological sovereignty and security, and to take a value chain approach. Collaboration and partnerships, of course, as I said, will be key part of our response to face these challenges. And the next slide is a bit of a reminder of the bigger picture, of the big picture. On the one hand, showing the drivers of 6G research and development. Then on the other hand, the expected results, some of the key enablers, and of course, as a horizontal but important component, international collaboration, which we will speak a bit more about later. Colin has already recapped the different players in the development of the partnership, of the development of the work program. Now, this slide shows basically the governance structure of the JU, representing the European collaborative path towards 6G. On the top three rows, what you can see is really the governance system, the JU members representing the private and the public sector in 50-50, and as Colin has explained, the private side has a particularly strong role in the development of the work program. As a strategic advisory body and also focused on synergies with national investments, we have the member states, the states representatives group. And finally, we also have seek synergies with other partnerships and associations. And to that end, we have as an advisory body, the stakeholders group. And then we seek international partnerships this year with particular focus on Korea and Japan. So as you can see, the whole governance structure and how we work, how we develop our work program is very much based and rooted in collaboration and partnerships, which remain strategic priorities for us, echoing very much Pearse's and Colin's messages. And then to turn to the part which is really a recap of the state of play of the JU. The JU has become financially autonomous on the 24th of October last year. We have a very committed and capable team, not fully staffed yet, but already a quite strong team. based in the White Atrium building in Brussels. And we have a dedicated website, as you can see, where all news and relevant pieces of information are being made public regularly. This slide recaps our phased approach, 3 phases. The first of them, the first very much building on still the work of the 5G PPP, was the third phase really foresees pre-commercial, fully developed 6G systems. At the moment, we are in phase 2. The work program 2024 is in phase 2, and also next year's work program is still foreseen to be part of phase 2. An important landmark in 2025 that we will need to think about already, and we are focusing on already in this year's work program, is that standardization activities, global standardization activities will start, and therefore we need to prepare for participation in those. An overview on this slide of our calls. We have 35 projects in call 1, 28 projects, 27 plus 1 projects in call 2, and we are expecting approximately 16 projects in our current third call, which is of course currently open. We have important KPIs to meet, and I would just highlight that in our first call we had 18%, and in the second call 26% participation of SMEs, which is an important meeting the important KPI of at least 20%. The call 3 is open, but with regard to 6G RNI, but the second pillar of the JU's activities relates to coordinating strategic deployment agendas, in particular in the field of 5G corridors for connected and automated mobility. And I would just like to remind that there is an open call also with regard to CEF digital and 5G corridors, which is running until the 20th of February. And back to our own very important dates. As you know, call 3 is open since 16th of January, and it will be running until the 18th of April. Today we have the info day, and also this week on the 25th of January, we will have the call 3 brokerage event. And a little bit to dig into this year's work program, on which you will hear more details from Javier in particular. We foresee the allocation of approximately 129 million euros, and we are focusing on higher TRL projects, more focus on 6G standardization and proof of concepts. International collaboration is an important priority, in particular with Japan and South Korea, following focus on the United States last year. We have 2 lighthouse projects, sustainability and microelectronics. Artificial intelligence, end-to-end artificial intelligence in particular, will remain an important priority. And this year we are introducing a synergy call with EU Rail JU, of which you will hear later from the representative of the EU Rail JU itself. And of course, trials with verticals with a sustainability focus will also remain an important priority. We have tried to condense quite a lot of content into just a few slides, but on each of these elements, you will hear more details from our colleagues. Thank you very much for your attention, and hope to see you at our next events where we will be present at the Mobile World Congress and also at the EU CNC and 6G Summit in Antwerp later this year. With that, thank you, and I hand back over to you, Alex.
Thank you very much, Erzsebet. Thank you for setting the scene. Then we can move on to the next presentation, which is from Mr. Javier Albares, the Head of Programs in the SNSJU office.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Javier Albares. I'm the Head of Programs of the SNSJU, and I'm going to give you, I think, a high-level overview of the orientations that we are going to use in the next year program. So today I will share with you just basically three messages. Just what is the program? I think many of you know it already, but maybe some of you are new to the program. So I will give you an idea of the structure of the program and how we are going basically breaking it down. Specifically, some of the key orientations that I think are going to be relevant for all of you that are considering applying for any of our grants on how projects will be evaluated. And finally, an additional piece of information on how we measure success, because I think this is also relevant for the community to know how we internally at the SNSJU are going to be evaluating success going forward. So in terms of the first topic, the structure of the program, many of you are very familiar with this as we are starting the third call of the program, but we started the program with 4 streams, A, B, C, and D. Right now in 2024 and for the work program, we are going to be focusing only on streams B, C, and D. Stream A was more focused on 5G advanced technologies and has not been included in this year. Stream B is the main stream from a research point of view. It has, I will explain it later. It has different strands that are connected with the different parts of the smart networks and systems and services ecosystem. Stream C is focused on experimental infrastructures and platforms, and Stream D is focused on large-scale trials with verticals, which are also very much needed. Kind of moving one level down in terms of the explanation of how these 129 million euros have been distributed among the different projects, and this is our initial kind of design. I would say 2/3 of the program will be allocated to Stream B. We are going to have 12 projects there, and as you can see, in addition to the traditional B1, 2, 3, and 4 kind of strands focus on system architecture, wireless technologies, infrastructure and devices, or reliability and security, we have included 4 new areas that are new for this year, for this work program, which are the international collaboration programs with Japan and South Korea. And I think we have guests that will talk about it later today. A specific lighthouse project on sustainability, which is going to be a very relevant topic forward, and also a specific program on reliable AI. These 2 topics, sustainability and AI, I think are going to be fundamental for the future 6G systems. And I think the recommendation would be that it can be considered in any part of any project of our program, not necessarily only in the sustainability and reliable AI parts of the program. So that is, I think, an important consideration. In Stream C, we are going to have also a lighthouse project on microelectronics. In Stream D, we want to have a number of large-scale trials with verticals. And in addition to our CSA, so our coordination and support action that we'll launch in every call, this year we are going to have a synergy with the EU Rail, which is a sister JU under the European Commission, with focus on FRMCS. And I think this is You will see the details of this call in the EU Rail JU work program, but I think it's worth mentioning. I think for those of you that are not familiar with the concept of TRLs, I think just a quick reminder. TRL basically measures the technology readiness of a research project on a scale from 1 to 9, and we are going to be focusing on TRLs that are a little bit higher than previous years. I think this is also relevant. Stream D will start in TRLs 2, 3, and will move up to TRLs 5. And I think there are different ways in which you can measure that. Stream C will be focused on TRLs 5 and 6, and Stream D, the large-scale trials and pilots with verticals, will be focused on 5 to 7. I think this is also important in terms of measuring the future impact that our research projects are going to have. Zooming in on Stream B, as I said, 2/3 of the funds are going to be allocated to this stream. Here you have the initial allocation of funds and the expected grant funding that each of the projects will receive. That gives us an indication of potential number of projects that could be funded in each of these strands. Obviously, this doesn't preclude that you submit a proposal that has a different kind of amount, and actually you can request it as well. Something that I think is important is that all these projects will need to demonstrate a target of what we call ICOP, the in-kind operational activities. I think Pavlos later on is going to do a deep dive on this, so I will not get into too much details, but I think it's important also to mention that there is the expectation from the program that the beneficiaries will also have a commitment in terms of additional value that is supported by the different participants. Moving into streams C, D, and the synergies called, here is equivalently. Here you have an indication of the allocation of funds, the expected grant allocation, and therefore the number of projects that could be funded. And here together these two streams plus the synergy with the Rail JU will receive 1/3 of the funds of the work program in 2024. So with all of this, I think you have an elevator view of the program structure and how this is going to be landed into the 2024 work program. So now moving to specifically to the key orientations of how proposals are going to be evaluated, and probably this is the most important slide of my intervention today. Two points that I think are relevant. One is the deadline. If you want to present a proposal, your deadline is going to be the 18th of April 2024 at 5 p.m. Brussels time. So put it in your calendar. And the fact that for this year, the UK is going to participate, as many of you probably are aware, and probably many of you are connecting today from the UK. The UK is going to participate in Horizon Europe, and is going to participate, therefore, in the SNS JU program. We expect, therefore, an increased number of proposals versus previous years, and we don't know how many there will be, but these proposals will need to be filtered through the traditional process of evaluation by experts and the selection of the final number of selected projects, 16 plus the project on EU Rail that is going to be. I think someone is, yeah. Okay, so these are, I would say, the most relevant orientations that we can give you in terms of how proposals will be evaluated. It's going to be very important to improve Europe positioning in this future economy, and the mobilization of the EU ecosystem is definitely a key milestone. The integration with verticals, especially to support the specialized services for verticals, very relevant. we already said it, green transition and the contribution of our research to significantly lower the energy needs of future networks. The support of innovative business models, and especially to disruptive high-value applications, for example, digital twins, for example, immersive experiences, this type of applications, to influence the 6G vision that will be standardized and to have an effective impact in 6G standardization is going to be also very important. And finally, to promote cybersecurity and economic security, not only for Europe, but as a whole for the future 6G networks. So this is what is going to be important for us. And now, moving to the final point that I wanted to make on how to measure success, I think this is, I think Einstein said that if we knew what we were doing, we wouldn't call it research. And therefore, I understand that it's very difficult to measure, especially in this type of programs, to anticipate what is going to be the success of a research project. But I think what we can do is to anticipate how we could measure if we have been or not successful. And I borrowed this slide from a presentation of Qualcomm. Qualcomm, as you know, is a very successful company that is developing technologies in the 5G domain, and some consider them as the leader in the quality of their 5G patent portfolio. When they communicate to the research community, they use slides like this one where they try to separate very clearly what are the areas where quality could be highlighted in terms of research. And they use the example of soccer, making a comparison between time of possession and the final score of a match. I think with such a, probably we have the brightest minds of Europe attending today's call and participating in these research programs. So there's no need to explain what could be time of possession and the final score in the context of our program like the one that we are trying to run. So, but just let me give you as a final comment, as a final remark, what is the indicative list of KPIs that we have internally at the JU that could make the program to be considered successful in 3 or 4 or 5 years' time. I think this is important for the whole community. It's important for us, but I think it's also important in the long run for all of you. One is going to be the percentage of SME participation, because this is going to be linked to the potential emergence of new actors in the supply chain. Another is going to be definitely the contributions to standardization in 6G and how that connects with the patent families and the essential patents that are going to be created in 6G. Another is the synergies with other partnerships. It has been mentioned by Colin before, so I will not continue on this, but collaboration with chips, with photonics, now with the EU rail is very, very important for us. I think we have to find a way in a very fragmented Europe from multiple angles to consolidate our common scale. Advanced solutions for verticals, because if we don't find a good collaboration with the verticals, it will be difficult to move our research projects into deployment. I think this is fundamental. The number of projects, the percentage of projects that will have a sustainability dimension will have an impact on how efficient from an energy point of view are the networks in the future. Future digital services in terms of what is the percentage of the future digital economy that Europe will participate in. And I think this is very relevant for all of us, and it's probably one of the main reasons why the European taxpayers are funding a research program like this one. And finally, very, very important, and for all of you, the scientific excellence, because this will have a huge impact on the consensus and on the building of the tech solutions and the consideration of what is 6G and on the KPIs with a lot of implications. So thank you very much. I think I finish and I give the floor back to Alex. Alex and Paulos will continue adding more details on this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Javier. We have roughly a couple of minutes to see where we are with the questions. Kostas, I don't know if you want to take the floor. From what I've seen, most of the questions have been answered so far.
Yes, indeed. So it's good to see that we have a lively discussion. So thank you, everybody. And many thanks to the SNSJU colleagues for already answering the bulk of it. I think I would just simply give the floor to Pavlos, as he has taken the lead and provided very good answers already now, in case he wants to add something on top of what's already been mentioned in the chat. But I understand that some information will also be answered down the line today from the rest of the presentations.
So I tried to answer most of the questions, of course, and many thanks also to other colleagues that contributed. I don't think we should focus now on the financial questions. In any case, I would like to ask all participants. We cannot go into the details of the financial questions in this info day, because there are standard Horizon Europe rules and there is no clear yes or no answer. For example, I saw a question on the if we can buy the projects can buy cloud services, equipment, etc. from US. So there is no clear answer on that. You have to check the annotated model grant agreement, their standard eligibility criteria. In theory, yeah, it could be possible, but then they have to be accurately incurred, linked with the action, they have to be reasonable, and a lot of other, let's say, criteria that need to be respected in order to have this as an eligible cost. So I will not go into the details of such questions in the info day. Of course, as I will also mention in my presentation, you're always free to ask your questions. If there are general Horizon Europe questions, please free to contact the inquiry service or the Horizon Europe help desk. But also, if they're specific to our program, please feel free to contact ourselves through the functional mailbox that I will show also in my presentation, but also the form that we have in our website. So I don't know if there is any burning question for the moment. I haven't seen any for now. So I think we can proceed to the next agenda item, which is the break, if I'm not mistaken.
Indeed, it's the coffee break. So let's have something like 9 minutes of a coffee break. We will resume at 11 o'clock with the presentation that I'm going to give about the technical content of the SNS R&I work program. So talk to you all in a few minutes.